What separates brands like Cortez from everybody else? Or why can Supreme sell out faster than every other brand? And the truth is that there's other brands with the same quality designs, the same quality materials, and even better designs and better materials and better customer service and better prices and better discounts and better XYZ. And yet they aren't at the same level of Cortez, Supreme, Nike. What is the X factor that separates those guys from the rest? There really is something else at play here, and I believe the answer is community. Hi, I'm Elijah Delport, and once upon a time, I was content creating for Culture Kings, Champion, and many other brands that I'm sure you might know. And today, I'm helping clothing brands turn their audience into a community, the very X factor that separates the big guys from everybody else. This video is part 1 of 5 where I'm breaking down the exact structure I've used to help brands like Harry. Within 2 weeks of applying this community framework, we dramatically increased his engagement on Instagram and started seeing comments like this. And then one of his videos got 1.6 million views. Not too bad, especially for an account with less than 5,000 followers. And then not too long after that, Harry saw his quickest ever sellout clothing drop, 200 units in under 90 minutes. And that is the real results of what we're talking about, the sales, the sellouts at the end, and it's all because of community. Now, I'm sure those numbers are pretty convincing, but why else would you want to build a community around your clothing brand? Well, it's very simple. Customers in community become fans. F-A-N. F is for faithful. It means that your customers turn down other options, your competitor clothing brands, even if they are logically better. We've learned from biology that our limbic brain is in charge of decision making, which is also head of emotions, which means that a lot of our decisions, most of the time, are emotional before they are logic. I like this quote, that we buy with emotions and justify with logic. Well, that's exactly what happens when you build a community. You are appealing to the emotional side, the faithfulness of your customers, that they would turn down other logically better options. A is for advocate, and a customer in community becomes a fan or an advocate. And an advocate is somebody that stands on the street corners and shouts your name to the world. Now, not literally, but they might become a walking, talking billboard where they're wearing your brand proudly on their chest. They're telling their friends, they're sharing it with their family. It is free word of mouth marketing. And if you've learned anything, I'm sure you would have heard that word of mouth marketing is one of the, if not the most powerful type of marketing, because we buy from those we know, like, and trust. So no better person than to reach new audiences than people who we are friends with. In other words, your customers going out to their friends and reaching them because they are advocates for your brand. Finally, N is for nurtured. Customers in community become fans that are nurtured. That they come back and buy and buy and buy again and again and again. The people that show up from drop to drop, they are repeat buyers. And this, if there's no other business case, is certainly one. Because repeat buyers mean that you're not only getting more customers, but increasing the value of the customers that you do have. Think about it like this. If every single one of your customers became a fan today and bought 2 times instead of 1, overnight you would double your revenue. Now, it's true, that's unrealistic. However, get my point. Understand what I'm putting down is that if you are able to successfully build a community, at the end of the day, what you get are more customers that stay longer and buy more times. What reason do you have not to build a community? So now I've got you hooked on this idea of community. What are we going to be covering in this first part? Well, very simply, 3 things. First of all, how communities work. We need to understand how they work if we're going to build them. And then we're going to be planning out your community for your clothing brand. And then finally, an actionable step that you can implement today to start getting moving on creating and cultivating your community. So if you get to the end of today's video, I promise that you'll walk away with the foundations you need to start growing your community. Not just build an audience, but actually have engaged customers that really care, that are super fans for what you're doing. And if that's not enough, I have a personalized free gift for you that's going to help you take your brand to the next level, but it's only for those who get to the end of the video. More on that in a few minutes. So let's get into it. How does community work? What we're really asking with this question is, what is the glue to the community? Because that, I think, is the very difference between an audience and a community, is the fact that we're more unified than other cases. And so to understand how community works, we're going to be looking to some of the greatest examples of the greatest communities that we have in history and in society. First of all, the Christian community. Now, I don't really care if you believe in it or not. That's not my point. But simply recognize the fact that Christians have done a pretty good job at being unified and being a community, because there's really more of them than any other unified people group in the world, other than maybe some specific cultures. Another example is family community or a family culture. We're all unified by our family cultures, and it's usually in association with a family name. You know, I'm sure you might have heard people say, oh, don't hang out with the Browns. It's because there's a certain family culture that is associated with that name, with that person, that maybe you don't want to be a part of. And finally, to bring it back to fashion, let's think about a brand like Patagonia, who has a very strong community. And they're all unified by this idea of sustainability and care for our planet. How can we be better at being stewards of the planet that we're a part of? What is the common trait? We can recognize that all of these communities have done a pretty good job at growing, at being unified, at being strong. And so if we're going to learn something from them, we have to understand what is the common trait between all of these. Well, it's very simple. There is a central idea that is common between every single person inside of these communities, and that is the unifying factor of the people. And that's it. A central idea, or as I like to call it, a big idea. A big idea, to give it a definition, is the specific ideology, culture, or lifestyle. It's asking yourself, what is the specific ideology, culture, or lifestyle behind my clothing brand? The thing that goes beyond the clothing, but is going to unify the people that become a part of my community, and eventually will go on to wear my clothing and represent it to the world. Here's a harsh truth that's difficult to come to terms with. It's that you cannot build a community around a product. You can, however, around a big idea. Every example, even in the world of fashion, whether it be Supreme, Nike, Cortez, Patagonia, they all represent a greater idea, and that is why they have a strong community. And it's not because they have a good product or because they have good quality materials or good designs or any of those kind of things. Although they are important, and that is a foundational expectation for any brands that embark on cultivating a community, the true glue to their community is the foundational or big idea behind it all. It is the brand itself. Nothing to do with the product. It is represented by the product, but it is the brand. I like this quote by Simon Sinek. He says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And to bring it to the fashion industry, they don't buy your t-shirt, they buy the greater conceptual meaning behind it. As I mentioned before, it's proven in biology that the limbic brain that is in charge of decision making is also in charge of emotions, which means before anything else, our decisions are made emotionally. Buying a t-shirt is a logical decision. It's either to say, I need a new one, I need to clothe myself, or maybe I like the material or design of this product. That's all information. It is logical. However, to say I resonate with the idea that this t-shirt or the brand behind it represents, that's an emotional decision. And to tap into that is to tap into the very reason why we buy. So let's link this back to the fan framework. Remember, customers in community become fans. F-A-N, faithful, advocates, nurtured. First, faithful. Your big idea answers, what are they being faithful to? Next, advocates. Your big idea also answers, what are they advocating for? And finally, nurtured. It's answering the question, what's the greater idea that they are buying into again and again and again? Why are they becoming repeat buyers, and what are they becoming repeat buyers for? Now we have an understanding of how community works. Let's move on to step 1 in actually making your community a reality. We need to plan it out. The biggest issue I see among amateur clothing brands is they start with their product. And it makes a lot of sense. If you're selling clothing, that you need a clothing product. And bringing over the concept of a big idea Planning your community is much about clarifying what that big idea is behind your brand. It really has nothing to do with the clothing. However, the problem is with this that they are signing up to simply get some sales, not some customers, and certainly not to cultivate a community. So if community is for you, then you have to define your big idea. Here are 5 questions that are going to help you uncover and clarify your big idea. Question 1, what does your brand name mean? Question 2, who is the one person that best embodies your brand? 3, what about them is aligned with your brand? 4, if that person and others were gathered in one place, what would they be doing? And 5, what's the greater mission beyond clothing? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you an example and fill out these questions myself and answer them to show you what it looks like to answer these questions. And as a little side quest, I want you to guess what brand I have in mind when I'm answering these questions, because one of the traits of a good brand is that you should know who they are without even having to say their name or show you their product. All right, are you ready? Let's go. First, what does your brand name mean? Now, of course, I'm not going to give you the name because that would give away the brand I have in mind when I'm filling this out. So I'll just tell you what it means. It means the Greek goddess of victory, and it's all about sporting challenges and overcoming and seeing success on the other side, probably being an athlete of quite a high caliber. Second, who is the one person that best embodies your brand? When it comes to this question, I'm thinking about naming a very specific friend, family member, or celebrity. And the key here is that you have to name only one person. In the case of the brand that I have in mind, the person is Michael Jordan, the basketballer. Question 3, what about them is aligned with the brand? I want you to name specific personality traits, attributes, beliefs, values, interests, anything that is integral to their being or that they're known for. In the case of Michael Jordan, I've written out a few ideas here. I'm thinking disciplined, there's a love of sport, in particular basketball, and of course a never give up attitude. There's persistence behind what he does. And with that comes all these ideas of getting up early, working on the hard days, and doing it anyway. The 4th question is, if that person and others like them were gathered in one place, what would they be doing? I think in the case of Michael Jordan, it's pretty obvious. They'd probably be playing basketball or working out or something along those lines. Just something that unifies other people of the same or similar interests, beliefs, or values. Basketballers hang out with other basketballers, and that's the case for whatever your brand niche or big idea is. The people that embody your brand probably also hang out and are close with other people that have similar or shared interests to them. Finally, what is the greater mission beyond your clothing? In the case of the brand that I'm thinking of, it's to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. Can you guess who I was writing for? Yes, of course, it's Nike. And the reason I wanted to show you this activity is because one of the traits of a strong brand identity is the fact that you don't even have to say their brand, show their logo, or their product to even know who they are. There wasn't one mention of the Nike clothing product in my answers, and yet you still knew who I was talking about. And this should be the case with you and your brand when you fill out these questions too. Make sure it's really clear and forget about your product for a minute, because it's not really about the product. It's rather about the brand that's represented by the product. And again, to relate it to community, you cannot build a community around a product. You can, however, around a big idea. So I hope these 5 questions and this activity has brought some clarity to your big idea, or maybe help you uncover it if you've never even thought about it before. So let's recap everything that we've gone over in this first part. First of all, customers in community become fans, faithful, advocates, and nurtured. And that's why you'd want to build a community, because at the end of the day, it means you can have more customers that stay for longer and buy more times. That's a business case and a half. Then, you can't build a community around a product. You can, however, around a big idea. I have a firm belief in this because the greatest communities, the greatest examples of communities we have in society are not built around a product, but rather an idea, a common interest, belief, value, or ideology that unifies every member of that community. Finally, your brand is strong enough if people know who you are without even having to mention your product or show your logo. That is how you know you have a good brand identity and one that is worthy and strong enough to build a community around. So here is your action step for today to start putting your community in motion. Go back through the 5 questions from before and answer them according to your brand until your big idea becomes crystal clear. As you'll soon find, this big idea will be the foundation for which you build everything on top of that is to come. Without it, it'll topple over, and if it's not strong, it'll break and fall. So please make sure it is crystal clear, and it's going to improve over time. So whatever you got for now is probably good enough to get started. Well, look at you go. You made it to the end. Thanks for watching. I really hope that this first part on planning your community was helpful in helping you turn your audience into a community. And as promised, I have a special free gift for you that's going to help you to take your brand to the next level this year. It's very simple. If you want to turn your audience into a community and customers into fans, then go to the description and click on my Calendly link to book a free personalized community roadmap. We're going to sit down and we're going to walk through and plan out your community, go through the exact steps that I've shown you in this lesson. And by the way, this video is part 1 of 5 in a greater series all about how to turn your audience into a community. We've planned your community, but there's still so much more to come. In part 2, I'm going to be sharing with you how to find the founding members of the community. This is for you, especially if you're an already established brand, because although you may have followers, you don't have members. Click on the video on screen now to watch part 2. I'll see you there. I'm Elijah Delport. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next lesson. Harry owns a clothing brand that has 4,000 followers on Instagram. However, just because he had followers doesn't mean he has members. And just because he has an audience doesn't mean he has a community. Well, we started to post about his reason for existing, the meaning behind the brand, instead of just the product. And what happened was dramatic. Instead of just seeing comments like this, we started seeing comments like this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Today, Harry's clothing brand doesn't just have an audience, and they don't just sell clothing. They are a community. Hi, I'm Elijah, and once upon a time, I was creating content for Culture Kings, Champion, and many other brands that you probably know. Today, I'm helping streetwear brands turn their audience into a community. This video is part 2 of a 5-part series all about the exact structure I've used to help brands like Harry's turn their audience into a community, and I'm going to teach you how to. By watching this series to the end and applying its advice, you'll be able to successfully cultivate a community. In business terms, that means more customers that stay for longer and buy more times. There is absolutely no reason why you wouldn't want to turn your clothing brand into a community. So here's what we're going to cover today. First of all, we're going to be talking about how to attract an audience the right way. There's a lot of advice out there about how to get a lot of views. However, views don't necessarily correlate into a community. Maybe an audience, but not a community. So we're going to be talking about that. Then we're going to be learning some storytelling basics, which is going to run nicely into creating the content itself. What kind of videos and photos should you be posting on your brand page so that you can not only grow an audience, but grow a community? So here's my promise to you. If you get to the end of today's video, you'll learn how to convert not just anyone, but the right people to your community. And if that wasn't enough, I have a personalized gift for you at the end of this video. It's only for people that stay to the end. It's totally free, totally personalized, and it's for those that want to take their brand to the next level this year with the power of community. All right, let's talk about how to attract your founding members. For a brief recap on the last video, we spoke about how to plan your community. It was all around the fact that you cannot build a community around a product. You can, however, around a big idea. It's just the product that represents that big idea. And so we have these 2 types of content almost that we're going to be breaking down today. And the first type is the content that you're probably the most familiar with. It's content about your product. And the thing is with this is it's super important. I should say that from the outset, because if people don't know about the product, then how can they buy it? Advertising is paramount. However, the thing is, content about your product will get you one thing and one thing only: sales, right? And you need sales, you need money to run the business, but what it's not going to get you is customers. And so that's when we talk about the step before advertising your product, which is about obtaining the customers. It doesn't directly result in money in your pocket. However, in time it does, because of course from customers comes sale after sale after sale. And so what is this other type of content? It's anything about your big idea. That's what we spoke about in the last lesson. But in short, your big idea is an ethos, culture, or lifestyle behind your brand. It has nothing to do with the product. However, it's embodied by the product. And so creating content around this idea is going to help you obtain customers, obtain what I like to call the founding members, the people that resonate with your brand and everything that it stands for, who eventually are going to become the most loyal customers to your brand. Some call this type of content entertainment advertising, because it's all about creating content that's not directly or explicitly about your product. It's not saying, hey, buy my t-shirt, buy my hoodie. It's all about creating content that is value first. It's delivering value to the very person who will become a part of your community, to the person that best resonates with your message. And so value content, to give it a definition, is any content that is focused on delivering value to a very specific target audience. Now, I want to give you an example. The example is Nike. I spoke about them in the last lesson and we broke down their brand identity. So now let's continue on from that and see how they use that brand identity to create content that attracts not just customers or sales, but an audience that will become a community. One example of their value content are these inspirational quotes that they post. They have an image of an athlete that's probably an ambassador for the brand of some kind. They're wearing the Nike merchandise. However, it's not really about the product. There's nothing in the post that says, check out this new collection, or here's where you can buy this product. It's really about the person, about the athlete, and it's focused on storytelling. And usually there's a little inspirational quote on screen that'll have something to do with one of the sub-themes of their brand and their identity, something like winning or about discipline or motivation, something that you'd look at, and if you were a passionate athlete, you'd probably share that on your story or with your friends. And so this is one way that Nike is using this value content to gain not just sales, but customers who will become integral parts of their community. Another example is the Nike podcast. It's called Trained, and they speak about the areas of health: physical health, mental health, emotional health, social health. They talk about motivation, sleep patterns, and they have guests, anyone from Simon Sinek to some of the athletes that are ambassadors for their brand, and they talk about how to improve your health. And this is one of the ways they're educating their audience and growing an audience this way, who will also become a founding member to their community. Are you seeing what I'm putting down here? It's that if you get people buy the product, they stay by the product. And the problem is with that is that the products come and go. And so they'll go with the product when it's no longer available. However, if you get people buy the brand, buy your big idea, the identity behind the products that they represent, that's something that stays. It's foundational no matter whatever you're dropping. And that's also something that us as humans can deeply resonate with and is reason to become part of the community. If we go back to the last lesson, the common trait between all of the greatest community is the fact that the members are unified by a common idea. Well, you need to gather them by that idea, by the content you post, and that is through the value content. The next question is, how do these brands actually go about creating this content? Not so much how they film it, but rather the ideation process behind it. How do you come up with this stuff that really doesn't have anything to do with your clothing product, and how can you too? So I like to break it down into 3 types of value content: entertainment, education, and inspiration. What you'll find is most non-product or non-promotional content that is with purpose to cultivate a community is or fits within one of these categories. And so entertainment content looks at anything that's funny or relatable or interesting. Next is educational content, could be giving tutorials, how-tos, or just generally sharing information. If you're sharing the news or any sort of notices that are relevant to your clothing brand niche or big idea, that's all informational and would come under the category of education. And then finally, there's inspiration content, which is motivational, actionable, or shareable. It's those quotes that you see. It's anything that makes me go, yeah, I really resonate with that, or prompts me to take action. That's inspirational content. Now, the idea with these three types of content is that you as a clothing brand, in order to build a community, create within these types to do content that is relevant to your big idea. So if you're a brand that's all about skateboarding and that's your big idea, you don't want to be creating content about mental health. You want to be creating content about skateboarding. Or for example, if you're a brand that's about getting outdoors, you don't want to be creating content about how great it's to be a homebody, right? So you use these guidelines of entertainment, education, and inspiration to create content specific to your niche and your clothing brand. And that is more on brand than anything, more on brand than even your clothing itself. I think it's really helpful to understand these concepts with some solidified examples. So let's look back to Nike. We understand a bit about their brand identity. They're defining what it means to be an athlete. That's their big idea. Let's see how they use that idea to turn it into content under entertainment, education, and inspiration. First of all, entertainment. So we're going to watch this short 10-second video together, and then we're going to talk about what they're doing.
The good news is you made it into the highlight reel. The bad news is you made it into the highlight reel.
Man, I love it. I think it's really funny, right? And that's the point of entertainment content. This video is showing the irony in sport culture, right? That there's, at the same time, there can be a sports player that made it into the highlight reel that had their massive win, but it also reflects the other side, that there's got to be losers. And so I think if you're a person that's interested in sporting, this is something that's, it's funny and you get it. And I mean, even if not, you can get it. But you can see how this video has nothing to do with the clothing product. People in the short are, of course, wearing Nike costumes. They're wearing Nike t-shirts and jerseys. However, it's not really about it. The subject is storytelling, and the story is about this girl who's winning, right? And maybe she's the protagonist, and then there's the antagonist, which happens to be the other team. But it's something you remember. It sticks in your mind, and this is just something that's not possible if you're just creating content all about your product. And of course, the point of this entire series, it's not possible to cultivate a community with stuff like this, because this is the stuff that says, I'm a part of this bigger idea. I'm a part of something that's not just selling clothing, but selling this idea of what it means to be a sports person in the case of Nike, or for whatever your niche or big idea is as your clothing brand. Let's watch the second video now, and then we're going to talk about it again.
I'm Grant.
I'm Amos.
I'm Craig.
I'm Paula.
Recovery Run's all about recovery.
I guess my favorite thing about the recovery run, you just chat to people and you just share stories.
It's important to stay hydrated and just be relaxed.
If you can talk and hold a conversation, you're probably recovering right. If you can't hold a conversation, you're going way too hard. So recovery days, keep them light, keep them easy, have some company, and have some fun.
Awesome. There's a lot of great things going on in this video, and I only have time to break down a fraction of it, but you'll notice, different from the first one, this one is more of an educational focus. It's about how do you properly do a recovery run. You need to make sure that you're not running too fast, and do it with friends and keep it interesting. If you can hold a conversation, you're doing it right. And so this is going to be this is under the Nike running Instagram page. And so you can see how if you're a runner, you would consume this not just because you like a clothing product, but because it's genuinely valuable to you. And if you like put yourself in the shoes of Nike, they're trying to think, how do we build a community of runners around the Nike running brand? Well, very simply, post the content that attracts the runners. And so if you're in the niche of mental health, if you're in the niche of sustainability, if you're in the niche of skateboarding or sport, like you could be in anything about getting outdoors. There's so many opportunities to post educational content. Here's what you should bring on a hike, or here's some signs of grief, or, like these kind of things that are relevant to your brand that are gathering the founding members of people that might actually be interested in being a part of your community and buy for the emotional reasons before the logic. Now let's look at one final post of Nike's together in the final category of inspiration. And this time it's not a video, it's in fact a post. And it says this: if you can shoot, you can shoot. Great. So simple, right? What are they doing here? Well, you can see the common theme here. I keep saying it. It's not about the clothing. It's about the idea behind the clothing, about success, what it means to be an athlete. And this is a post that, if you were interested in sport, if you were interested in basketball, heck, you'd be really interested in this. It's like, yeah, I can shoot, I get into this. And the other thing is that a post like this that's inspirational prompts people to comment, right? And people that are within the niche that are passionate or share interests with the kind of ideas that you're sharing. And what's so powerful about that? Well, let's just think from an engagement perspective. Every social media platform is ranking your posts according to the engagement. Well, that's one of the ways anyway. And so if you have a post that lots of people are commenting on, lots of people are liking, then they're going to say that's more valuable, or that's people like this more than another post, and they're going to boost it in the algorithm. And so, that's if you can post some inspirational or motivational content that prompts people to comment, even if it's a bit controversial, this is, if you can shoot, you can shoot. Some people would say, well, not everyone can shoot, right? So, you understand what I'm saying. The purpose of this is not to sell a product. The purpose of this content is to gather the people that are going to buy your product, but not only that, become part of your community, people who buy and buy and buy again. And then later on, when you finally say, okay, here, by the way, here's the latest collection, now they're ready. Now they're ready, and you've got the right eyes. Not just eyes, but the right eyes. If I'm not yet selling you on the idea of posting non-promotional content, I just want to show you what it's like purely from an engagement perspective when done well. Here are two posts from Nike. One is of LeBron James. It says 40K plus 10K plus 10K equals number one, right? Because he's number one in the world. And then here's another post of the Nike Air Max DNs, right? So it's a new shoe that they were releasing, I suppose. And the engagement on these two posts, the difference is dramatic, right? You've got 1.2 million likes on LeBron James, and on these shoes you have less than 100,000. Now 100,000 sounds pretty good to most people, but considering that Nike has more than 300 million followers, it's pretty poor engagement for their standards. And so it's just to show you that posting stuff that's actually valuable and it's focused on the target audience, and not asking for them to give you money, buy your product, whatever. If it's focused on them, that does actually get more engagement more times than not, right? And of course, there's other factors in it. It comes down to, like, what's the quality of what you post? And do people actually like it? Is it actually valuable? There needs to be some experimentation and iteration in that process. However, if and when you get it right, then you can expect much higher engagement on your value post versus your product posts. And that's also another part. It's about reaching people and growing your audience before you even sell them on anything, is growing your community. And that's going to do you better for the long run and later down the track. So now that we understand the mindset behind the type of content that you want to be creating to find your founding members of the community, now we need to understand how to actually create it in a way that works and reaches. And I like to take the advice of Adam Missouri. He is the head of Instagram, and he says the most important metric of all of them is shares. It's shares. It's not likes. It's not comments. It's not saves. it's shares. And why is that? It's because if someone shares it, it has the potential to reach many more people. You just multiply that number by a power, depending on the size of their audience, of course. And so sharing has the potential to take your reach to the very next level. And so how do you actually create a piece of value content that's shareable? Well, you're already on the right track if you are in the mindset of creating content value first before asking for people to buy your product. But it's all about becoming remarkable. And remarkable is something that you would make a remark about, like you'd tell someone else about. And that gives you the opportunity as a brand, if you can create remarkable content, to spread beyond your direct audience, to the indirect audience, the friends of your followers. And so what is remarkable? How do you actually create something remarkable? Well, I like to think about it like this. People share stories. We always have since the beginning of time. You know, I live in Australia, and the native peoples of my country, the Indigenous Australians, are the oldest living civilization on Earth. And the thing that's so core, so integral to their way of being is storytelling. They have these things called Dreamtime stories. They sit around the campfire and tell stories about how we came to be, why things exist, and how it's come to be in that way. And the reason this works so well is because stories, they're so deeply ingrained into our human nature. They're easy to pass on. It's not like information, facts and figures, numbers. Although those things are important, stories are what we will remember. People won't remember your product, but rather they'll remember who created it and the story behind that person and the brand. And so if you want your brand to be memorable, but not only memorable, but also remarkable, then you need to be telling stories around it. And so that's why for the second part of this lesson, we're going to be talking about some storytelling basics. When you're creating your value-focused content, what I want you to be thinking about is the two elements of every story. This is what I believe that makes up stories, makes them what they are. And if you don't have these, it's simply a pretty video, a pretty post. And there's all too many of those nowadays. And that's not really going to get the reach that you want. And so here are the two elements, conflict and resolution. I believe if you only have those two elements, you've got a story and one worth telling. So just think about that behind everything that you create from this day onwards, and I promise it'll at least increase the reach that you're getting today. So now that we understand value content, how it's going to help you find your founding members, or rather help them to find you, and then how you're going to create that using storytelling as a priority, let's talk about what you do when you don't want to create the content yourself. It's another type of value content that's an absolutely a viable option for any brand owners that want to extend themselves, either create more content in total, like you create it with someone else, or you just don't like creating content, so you have someone else do it for you. And of course, you can pay someone. However, there's another option, and it's called crowdsourced content. Now, crowdsourced content is anything that's made by people exterior to your company in the wider community. And I should say, as I mentioned, it's not content that you pay for, but rather you incentivize others to create for you, or you simply borrow and repost. There's two main types of crowdsourced content that you can be utilizing in your company. And by the way, you can do this on top of the content you create yourself. They are influencers and content creators. So the influencers are those, I like to define them as those with an established audience already that recognize them as an authority in whatever your big idea is. So for example, if you're a brand that is all about getting outdoors and loving the earth, like Patagonia, for example, then I would be choosing influencers that are already recognized in that space of sustainability. The thing is, many clothing brands default to choosing influencers in the fashion space. But the people you're trying to attract for your community aren't necessarily fashion enthusiasts. They're people that are interested or resonate with your big idea. So choose influencers that also resonate with that. An example would be for a sustainability brand like Patagonia. They're all about loving the environment, and their community also attracts people who resonate with that idea. A great influencer for them would be someone like Greta Thunberg. This is one of the youngest environmental activists, and she's gotten quite famous in recent years, in the last 5 years or so. And so she'd be fantastic. If she were to rep the Patagonia clothing brand, man, all of her followers would suddenly think, well, that's, since I'm into the environment and looking after it and caring for it too, then I might want to wear the same clothing as Greta Thunberg because that's what people who care about the environment do. That's how I represent my identity to the world and become a part of a greater community of environmental activists. The second kind are content creators. Now, these aren't necessarily influencers. They might not have a large influence. However, they are creating value content inside of your big idea. So entertainment, education, inspiration, all about your big idea. The reason this works well is because their content is standalone. They don't need a big name behind them. You don't even need to recognize their face to understand what they're trying to deliver through their content. Carrying on with the example of Patagonia, they could go to someone like Tasman Peterson. He is a photographer and videographer who likes to travel and takes a lot of pictures of the outdoors, landscapes, and the environment. And so, although his following isn't massive, just under 4,000 followers, Patagonia could still use his content to convey a message of environmental activism, and that would attract their members of the community that are going to become the loyal customers, because that's the kind of content they already consume and enjoy. And so, open your eyes, not just to influencers, and especially not just to fashion influencers, but also the influencers in your space that represent this big idea that you want to represent in your brand, and also to those that may not have a massive following, but are creating the value content, the entertainment, education, and inspiration that you too want to be creating in your brand. So if you want to get started in particular with crowdsourced content, because it's really easy to get started on that if you don't have the resources to create content of your own, here is your action step for today. Follow the celebrities, theme pages, and content creators that your most loyal customers follow. Because chances are your loyal customers follow pages that resonate with them, so you follow them too. Then I want you to watch their feed and save the posts, reach out to the content creators, and send clothing to the influencers. And in this way, you're going to build a bank in your saved posts of things that you could see you posting or reposting onto your page too. Again, just make sure it aligns with the big idea behind your brand. So if you're a brand that's all about skating, don't post stuff about the environment. Or if you're a brand that's about mental health, there's no need to post things about skating. So just make sure it is on brand to whatever your big idea is. And reach out to these creators. Message them saying, hey, I'm building a community of environmental activists, or whatever your big idea is too. And I would love to repost and share this content that you're posting to your community with some credit. And look, chances are they'll say yes. Especially, like, it's a numbers game at the end of the day. You just want to post, send cold messages to a lot of people, and I'm sure one of them will say yes, because all you need is one. So we've gone over a lot in this video, so let's recap it all. First of all, you cannot build a community around a product. You can, however, around your big idea. So create content about that idea, and you will attract not only sales, but customers, which eventually will become part of your community. Then creating a community-focused social media page looks like delivering value. It's by entertaining, educating, and inspiring according to your brand's unique big idea. And by focusing on storytelling when you're creating that content, you're making yourself remarkable and organically reaching beyond your direct audience. It's a way to grow beyond the people you're reaching currently. Alternatively, if you don't want to make the content yourself, you can work on crowdsourcing content by following the celebrities, theme pages, and other content creators within your niche and simply talking to them, asking if you can repost their stuff. Or you can just do that on top of the content you're already creating. Well, thanks for watching. This is all for this lesson. If you found this valuable and you resonate with the idea of building a community around your clothing brand, then I want you to go into the description right now. There's a link there where you can book a free community roadmap call where we're going to figure out where you're at right now, where you want to go and how to get there with the power of community. Basically just working through together all the stuff that I'm laying out for you in these lessons. Again, it's 100% free and there's no reason not to. So look, if you're wanting to build a community, book in that call and I can't wait to meet you. And by the way, this video is part 2 of 5 in a larger series all about how to turn your audience into a community behind your clothing brand. In the next part 3, I'm going to be sharing how to actually take these social media followers and turn them into highly engaged community members. And this is really where you find the difference between an audience and a community and get those customers that become fans, faithful advocates, and nurtured. Thanks for watching. Please click the video on screen now if you are keen to learn how to do that. I'm Elijah Delport, and thanks for watching. There's a brand out there that doesn't just sell clothes, but they've started a movement. Their fans don't just buy their product, but they actually host events. And why does this work? It's because they do everything in the name of seeking discomfort. And the fans that host these events for them believe and resonate deeply with this idea. Their products should simply become the ticket to become a part of the community. If you want to be a part of the seekers of discomfort, then you wear the t-shirt. So what does this tell us? Successfully build a community and it will not only run itself, but also you will start a movement. Hi, I'm Elijah Delport and I've created content for Champion, Culture Kings, and many other brands that you've probably heard of. Today, I'm taking that knowledge from my past life as a videographer and applying it to the streetwear brands of today and helping them turn an audience into a community. This video is part 3 of 5 where I'm sharing the exact structure that I've used and is going to help you do exactly that, build a community. And the big question is, why even care to build a community? Very simply, here's my business case. Customers in community become fans, F-A-N. F is for faithful, A is for advocate, and N is for nurtured. In other words, if you are able to successfully build a community, what you get is more customers that buy more times and stay for longer. The next question is, how do you actually do that? Well, since you've already defined what your community is going to be about, the reason why you're gathering people, and maybe even started gathering some of your audience, today we're going to be actually turning that audience into a community. So what are we going to be covering today? First of all, we're going to be defining the difference between an audience and a community. Many people say they have a community, but really it's just a large audience. Then we're going to be making sure that you are actually building a community and not just falling into the same trap as them. And then finally, we want to create a community that people want to be a part of. And I'm going to be breaking down some ways to do that. If you get to the end of today's video, I promise you'll walk away with the knowledge to be able to practically turn your audience into a community and your customers into fans, super fans that love what you're doing. And if that wasn't enough, at the end of this video, I have a personalized free gift for you to help you take your brand to the next level this year with the power of community. More on that in a few minutes. Let's get into how to turn your audience into a community. Step 1, pretty clear step. We got to define some key terms here. There are 2 main ones we're looking at. The word audience and community. These words have been thrown around a lot, but if we want to actually take these followers that if you've applied what we did in the last lesson where you started creating some value content, now you have your founding members or your followers that are really interested and resonate with the idea, the big idea behind your brand. How do we actually turn them in, or what are we turning them into is the question. And so I like to define it like this. Audience are mutual spectators. And here's an example for you. We all watch the Olympics. We can all watch it. You can be in Spain, I can be in Australia, someone else can be in America. We are all mutual spectators. We are all of the same audience. However, we are not a community until we start interacting and engaging with one another. So that comes to my definition of community. It's when there is interaction between the mutual spectators relevant to their common interest, belief, or value. And that's really important. It has to be relevant to the common trait between all the community members. Otherwise, we are just kind of a mixed bag, if anything. So in other words, if your Instagram followers start engaging with each other, well, now you have a community. And without that, You just have an audience. I think understanding the difference between these two is really helpful to see a visual example. So here on screen, you can see an example of what it looks like to have an audience. That dot in the middle is your brand, and the dots around the larger dot, the smaller ones, represent your customers or your followers maybe at this point in time. You can see that the interaction lines only go out from the brand out to the customers, the smaller dots on the outside, and there isn't really much more connection than that. Now, if we go over to look at a visual representation of community, you can see there is interaction lines in between the customers, in between each of the smaller dots. And even just by this visual representation, you can see the difference in strength between these two models. The second one, the community, is more like a web, and it has a greater integrity than that of an audience. And it really it comes back to the defining of the difference between audience and a community. It's that those in a community will interact with each other. The key word being interact. It's inside of the audience, there is interaction. Using these models, we can measure the strength of a community by the number of independent interconnections within the audience. And so the strength, or in other words, the strength of a community is equal to how much interactive engagement there is between your followers or your customers or whoever it is. With all of this in mind, and with the benefits of community, that customers become fans, I would much rather a small community over a large audience. And this is kind of countercultural in the landscape that we are building businesses in at the moment, with all this talk of social media, how to get all these views, how to get all these likes. And those things are important. However, arguably not as important as a really strong and even small community. Even better if you have a strong, large community. Because if we're going to use metrics to judge an audience versus a community, it comes down to the fact that a community always has a higher conversion rate and a higher customer value. That means you can have the same amount of customers and still increase your revenue. I want to tell you a story that illustrates the power of community. I once knew someone with a gym, and they had less members in their gym than really any of the other gyms in the area. And what was amazing is that even still, they were able to sustain themselves and sustain the gym with less members than everyone else. Why was it? It's because the members that they did have were so much more committed, so much more loyal than to any other gym. They stayed, the churn rate was super low. And really, it makes sense because after the gym, they'd all go out for coffee together. They'd talk throughout the week. They'd go to activities outside of just the gym classes. And this comes back to measuring the strength of a community is measured by the number of independent interconnections within the audience. If you have more interconnections between each of your customers, your followers, your members, whoever they may be, then they're going to be stronger, they're going to stay for longer, and they're going to have more reason to stay more than just the fact that they like your product. Now that we have a good understanding of the difference between audience and community, and also how to measure the strength of a community, it's important to talk about community platforms. Here's the thing, according to our definition of community, Instagram doesn't really provide you the tools to create a strong one. And TikTok is even worse. Because at best, what you have is maybe some comments, maybe you can send a post to your friend, but for the most part, consumption on these platforms is very isolated, which is the opposite of what community is. It means that a lot of creators and clothing brands that anchor their companies to the platform will only ever build an audience unless they move off. So here's how I like to think about it. Instagram, TikTok, and whatever other short-form social media platform are lead generation devices. They're used for reach to bring awareness to people that have never heard about your clothing brand before. But the difference is in the goal. Our goal is very simply to get them off Instagram and TikTok and to another platform that supports better and more close interaction between followers and members of the common interest, which is of course going to be your brand. So let's talk about what platforms are out there that provide you with better community tools than Instagram and TikTok. There's three main ones that I want to be covering the pros and cons of. These aren't the only ones. However, these are some of the largest ones. They are Discord, School.com and Facebook groups. Now you're gonna have to bear with me with this because this is quite a new and shocking strategy to the clothing and fashion industry. But I promise, again, if you implement these, you can expect great results, high conversion rates, high customer value, faithful, advocate, and nurtured customers that come back and buy again and again and again. That's the point of all of this, so please stick with it. First of all, there's Discord. It's widely used for gamers, however, it's kind of diversified in recent years to be a platform for communities of all different kinds. Let's talk about the pros and cons. First, the pros, it's free. You don't need to pay for it, not on a monthly basis, no startup fees. It's pretty good if you are a startup clothing brand. Another thing is that you can send messages, not posts. In this way, there's more close and interactive discussion than just, here's a post, you might leave a comment on it, but you don't really make lots of posts in a minute. Now let's talk about the cons. It's hard to qualify membership requests. What I mean by that is that anyone can simply join your community if they have a pulse. You're not able to request their email or SMS upon joining, and even worse, if they're a bot or if they have malicious intention, there's no way that you can judge kicking them out before they even enter and create some damage. And so that's kind of a problem with Discord. Another one is that you can't ask questions upon entering. There's no real easy way to do request form, which, as I mentioned earlier, would give you the ability to request their email and SMS upon entering. And we'll get to how you can use that in the next part of this series about how you can monetize this community and use it to sell your clothing product. Next platform is School.com. Let's talk about the pros because it's got a lot going for them at the moment. First, gamification. This is a system that incentivizes people to interact and engage with the community with a level up system. If you get likes on a post you make, you level up. Very simple. And people want to interact because maybe you can even attach some rewards to it. And again, something else we'll speak about in the next lesson, in lesson 4. But this is a really great feature that increases engagement dramatically on your community. Another pro is the pairing with email marketing. It's that you can request that people enter their email and SMS before they join the community. It's like the submitting a request form. That's the thing that I was talking about that Discord doesn't have. And it's built in the email marketing system. So you can make a post on your community and switch on send email to members, and simply it'll go out to everyone's email in their inbox. It's built in, it's fantastic. Imagine what you can do for a pre-release if you have this function already built into your community. Lastly, it's the ability for live calls. Discord has this and so does School.com. It's just other ways that you can increase the interaction between the members. And that's what we're thinking about, strengthening the community by increasing the number of engagements and interactions between individuals. However, something you should know is that you do have to pay for School.com. At the moment, to host a community costs $100 per month. But considering some of the benefits that you get from community with high conversion rates and increased customer loyalty, increased customer lifetime value, that should really be penny change. You should be weighing up the cost versus the reward if you do successfully implement something like this. Another con is that School.com is largely entrepreneur focused. This is okay if your big idea behind your brand is something to do with entrepreneurship, but if it's to do with environmental sustainability or with skateboarding or basketball or soccer or something along those lines, you might find it's not as useful. However, it's not that much of a big deal in my opinion. I think it's still good to look into School.com even if you aren't in the entrepreneurship niche. Finally, Facebook groups. Some of the pros of that, it's free, and secondly, you can ask for email and SMS before people enter. So you can make it a prerequisite for joining is that they have to also be a part of that marketing. Some of the cons are that there is no live call function. It's a real shame. It's what Discord and School.com have over Facebook groups. And another one is that there is an older audience attached, especially around streetwear. Usually there tends to be a younger audience with streetwear, and so you might not be able to captivate as many people with Facebook groups. Finally, there's a lack of chat category functionality. And what I mean by that is that you cannot label posts in an easy way under specific categories, like a general chat or a questions or an advice chat. And that's a real issue when you want to be, because I think chat categories are a way to incentivize engagement. When people see them there, they go, oh, they're there to be used. And if you don't have them, well, they don't even know that they can post anything. So now we have an understanding of these two different people groups in your brand. You've got your audience on your social media platforms, and then your community on some other platform, that being Discord, school.com, Facebook groups, or maybe some other. We need to now talk about how we get people from one to the other, because the goal, of course, is to get people onto your community. The question is how, and it comes down to your sales funnel. And the sales funnel is just how you get your customers from A to B, from stranger to buying customers, right? And so you can think about all of your Instagram or TikTok traffic as the strangers, the people that you're reaching out to that have never ever heard about your brand before. And you have one job and one job only. It's to pass those people on to your community. And this way you are funneling from those social media platforms to your community platform. And later on, we're going to talk about, in part 4 of the series, how to convert your community members into paying customers that come back again and again and again. It's about monetizing your community. But before we get to all of that, in the last part of our conversation today, we're going to be talking about how to make your community actually good. And it comes down to incentivizing engagement, because the truth is, no one wants to be a part of a dead community. The best example we got for this is group chats. We've all been a part of a group chat one time or another. And maybe it starts well, it's got some momentum, and then people start commenting, people start sending messages in it. Maybe it goes from once a day to once a week to once a month to twice a year to once a year. And you know, what happens then? Eventually, there is a last message that's sent, and the group chat just gets pushed down in the list of messages. You don't want this to happen to your community. And so this is why incentivizing engagement is super important, because you cannot do this all on your own either. Just like you cannot hold an entire group chat up on your shoulders, nor can you support an entire community's engagement on your own. So how do you actually get your community members, the people that have come from your Instagram, that believe in the message behind your brand, how do you get them to start engaging and making some posts in your community space? All right, so here are 2 practical things that you can do to create an engaged community. The first tip is very simple. Write text posts every single day. Because the truth is, you cannot expect others to engage in the community if you are not going to engage yourself. So there are 2 main types of posts that I've found helpful and that have really worked in the communities that I've started for myself and started for other clothing brands that you can use too. The first type is information or advice. Now, with this type, you want to be sharing information or advice that's relevant to the big idea behind your brand. So for example, if you are a mental health brand, you want to be sharing, here are some tips on how to improve your mental health. Or maybe you want to share a story about your mental health and how you overcame a challenge in your day-to-day life. These are all examples of some information or advice focused posts that you could make for a mental health brand, but whatever your big idea niche is, create it for that. The second type of post that you could write are engagement posts. Now these are focused, as the name suggests, on getting other people to engage. And so you're looking at asking a question, creating a prompt, discussion points, etc. It's anything that you're not necessarily writing the body of it, but you're prompting others to come in and chime in on a conversation. The best way to think about this is opinion pieces. For example, if I were an outdoors brand, I might create a post asking the question, what in your opinion makes for a good hiking track? All of a sudden you have all these members that come in and say, I think this and I think that. Or another example would be share your most favorite story on a hike. And people share photos and they share stories, and all of a sudden you have all these threads and feeds where people are commenting on other people's comments, and it's a great time. Not only for you, it's not only fun, but it's also great for that engagement, creating a community that people actually want to be a part of because it's super engaged, and then they form connections in between them so that they become loyal. Other than writing your own posts, the second way to incentivize engagement is by creating competitions, in particular engagement competitions. And this is where the gamification feature of school.com comes in really well, because you can actually measure people's engagement. This person got more likes than this person on their post this week, and so therefore they've engaged more. I've used engagement competitions on my own communities to more than 20x the engagement, so it actually works, and it's especially good if you have an incentive or reward on the other side of winning. For example, and this is a really unique feature of having the community model, the community framework, is that you can offer exclusive products that aren't up for sale, but are up for grabs for anyone that engages in the community. Well, not just anyone, but someone who wins. And the way it could work, and the way that I've done it in the past, is that you have a 30-day time frame, and the person that's at the top of the engagement leaderboard by the end of the 30 days wins a prize. And maybe there's a smaller prize for second and third too. I'm sure if you apply both of these tips in writing your own posts and also creating engagement competitions, that you will create a community that people genuinely want to be a part of. And there's not just anyone, but people in your niche that will eventually become super loyal customers to your brand. So let's recap everything that we've gone over in this lesson. The thing that separates a community apart from an audience is that there is interaction between the mutual spectators relevant to their common interest, belief, or value. In other words, if your Instagram followers start engaging with each other, well, now you have a community. However, the problem is that Instagram and TikTok don't really give us the tools to create a space where followers can easily interact. And so we have to move them off of the platform, use social media as traffic generator, and then move those people to another platform. For example, Discord, school.com, or Facebook groups. And it's in these spaces where people can form connections and you can build a strong community that is, at the end of the day, super fans. Nobody really wants to be a part of a community that's unengaged. So the two ways to incentivize engagement are by writing your own posts, number one, because who's gonna post if you're not yourself? And finally, by creating community challenges and contests with a reward on the other side. Maybe they get an exclusive garment for engaging. And in this way, you're going to maximize the amount of engagement, and everyone's going to love and want to be a part of the community that you're creating. And with all that said, here is your action step for today. I want you to choose a community platform and start directing traffic to it. Rework your funnel on your Instagram or your TikTok. Don't put your website link, or maybe you can have that too, but have a link that goes to wherever your community is and whatever platform you've chosen is best for your brand and its big idea. Thanks for watching. If this was valuable and you want to turn your audience into a community, customers into fans, then I want you to go down into the description right now and click on the link there. It's going to take you to my online calendar, and there you can book in a free community roadmap. We're going to figure out where you're at now, where you want to go, and how to get there with the power of community. It's 100% free. You're going to sit down, you and I, and we're going to have a conversation about how we can actually make this happen for you. We're going to be literally applying the things that I've been teaching through this series, just personalizing to your brand. So there's no reason not to. Go ahead and book that now. And by the way, this video is part 3 of 5 in a greater series all about how to turn your audience into a community. In part 4, I'm going to be sharing with you how to monetize the community platform you've just built and sell out in less time to more people than you ever have before. This is a real reality for the people that are able to successfully cultivate a community behind their brand, and it can be for you too. So please don't miss out on that episode. I'm Elijah. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next lesson. Have you ever been to an in-store drop? I like to imagine what Supreme would be like. There's a buzz in the air, a high conversion rate of all the customers. Everyone's waiting a line down the street. There's even interaction between customers, and you get all the elements of a super strong community when there's interaction between the people that are actually a part of it. This is the power of an in-store lineup. However, we've lost some of that today in our online world, and I aim to bring some of that back with some community strategies that I'm sure you haven't heard of before. I'm Elijah Delport, and I, once upon a time, was making content for Culture Kings, Champion, and some other brands that you might have heard of. Today, I'm taking that information and helping clothing brands turn their audience into a community. This video is part 4 of 5, where I'm breaking down the exact community framework that's helped brands like Justin's, who got 1.3 million views in less than 30 days from an account with 0 followers and 0 views. Now, I'm sure you find those numbers compelling, but throughout this whole series, I've been sharing why would you even want to build community? Very simply, customers in community become fans. F-A-N. They're faithful. They turn down logically better options. A, they're advocates. They tell the world, they're word of mouth marketing for your brand. And finally, N, they're nurtured. They're repeat buyers that come back again and again and again. In short, if you're able to successfully build a community, what you get is more customers that stay longer and buy more times. That's a business case if there ever was one. Let's get into it. There are 3 main things that we'll be covering today in this lesson. First of all, the current release strategy. What is the fashion market doing in order to release their clothing drops? And I should mention that this is in particular for limited quantity release brands. So we only have a certain number of units. They drop on this date. Once they're gone, they're gone. Then we're going to be talking about what's wrong with it, because it has some problems and we need to fix it. And then finally, the release strategy of the future. What is going to be the release strategy of the future that solves all these problems of the past, and how can you start applying it today? And so I promise, if you get to the end of today's lesson, you'll walk away with a structure to convert not just anyone, but the right people to customers and loyal customers, ones that come back again and again and again and again and again. And if that's not enough, I have a personalized gift for you. It's totally free so that you can take your brand to the next level this year. But it's only for those that get to the end of the video. So more on that in a few minutes. So to give some context around the conversation we're about to have about the release strategy for the majority of clothing brands today, we should talk about its origins, the joy of the in-person lineup. And for Supreme anyway, I was doing some reading up online, and it's amazing to me. You have to register to wait in line. And I even read a post that if you don't show up on the day, you'll be blacklisted and you cannot register to wait in line again. And so there's exclusivity around the lineup process, that there's a list. And if your name's not on the list, well, you can't enter the store even after lining up. It's suggested that you get there between 2 hours and 2 days early, depending on the hype around the drop. So if it's a really coveted item, then people are going to be camping out probably days in advance, and so should you if you want to get your hands on one of the more desired pieces. And another element of the in-person lineup is that you make friends with those around you. In the last lesson, we spoke about how to create a strong community, and that a strong community is measured by the number of interconnections between the audience itself, not just connections between the brand and the people or the customers. And so the in-person lineup is a fantastic opportunity to talk to the person next to you that share common interests or beliefs or values that people do with the brand, those that resonate with the brand. And so that's a really great part of the in-person lineup, I think. And to really solidify our understanding of the benefit of the in-person lineup, I want to tell you a story. I had George, the co-founder of Push Pull, on my podcast Street Cred, and he runs Push Pull, an Australian brand that has arguably one of the strongest communities. And he was talking about the power of running a pop-up and how there were 2 girls that once waited in line in the pop-up and they made quick friends. And well, they left that line staying friends, and they spoke offline. They spoke in the real world. They caught up outside of Push Pull and outside of the brand. And they're still friends to this day, however many years later. And Push Pull is something that they share together that's integral to their relationship. They wait up on the drops together, and they buy their garments together, and they gift the clothes to each other. And they've formed a really strong relationship around the brand. And it's not because necessarily that Push Pull has an amazing product, but rather they've created an environment that facilitates community engagement between the customers. And for this reason, they'll stay all the longer, buy all the more times, and probably bring others around them in their circles to buy from the brand as well. You know, it comes down to all the elements of a loyal customer. They are faithful advocates and they are nurtured. However, here's the problem. Most brands, probably you included, cannot afford a brick and mortar store. It takes a bit of a following to do an in-person pop-up, and at the very least some resources. And so what have we defaulted to? We have defaulted to email marketing instead. And well, it worked really well in the beginning because the first person that came up with it did fantastic. However, many brand owners come into the industry now that expecting that email marketing is going to be some magic or secret sauce that's going to skyrocket their brand when it's really not. Yes, you'll probably do better with it than without it. However, it's not some magic that's going to make your drops go crazy. And so, how do we retain the joy of the in-person lineup and all the benefits that it has to offer with the customer loyalty, with the conversions, with all of the things, yet bring it to the virtual world? So that's the big question we're going to be answering in this video. Before we get to that, let's look at the current release strategy. Let's break it down in a bit more detail. First, it looks like advertising the pre-release for email list subscribers. You might be primarily active on social media, and that's where most of your sales come from. You say, hey guys, we have this new collection. We are going to be releasing the website password to those that are subscribed to our email list. If you're not on there, you can't get it early. And those people might get it 12 hours earlier or something. And then, of course, later you release it to the public, but there's less units available because, they get the crumbs. The people on the email list get the first dibs. And as mentioned, this works well. It has worked for a long time for many brands. However, there's still some integral issues that it doesn't bring what the in-person lineup has to the virtual world. For example, it's an isolated inbox. When I receive an email from a, marketing email from a brand, I can't interact and see all the other people that might also be interested in buying from this brand as well. And that's the very metric that we use to measure the strength of a community, is how many interconnections there are between the customers. I lose that entirely with email marketing. The other problem is that people don't check their emails. There's just many people that don't. And especially in a younger demographic, when people are usually brought up nowadays on social media for communications more than email, it might get lost in among all of their spam. And even if they do, you happen to be competing with every other company on the planet doing email marketing. For these reasons, email marketing is one of those things that you'd probably be worse without, but isn't going to make your average brand skyrocket, sky high. It's not going to make it go to the moon. However, there is another model that maybe does have the potential to really make some dramatic positive difference in your brand's revenue and in your brand's community. And those two factors are really interconnected in a big way. And the solution comes in the new strategy. And I'm going to be breaking it down for you right now. Here it is. So this is what I like to call the community release strategy. And it's very simple. First, you advertise the pre-release for community members. And so you go onto Instagram and you say, hey, everyone, we're doing a pre-release. If you want to get in early on our latest collection, you have to join the community. Right? Very simple. You have an incentive, people join, and that's what happens. 2, you collect email and SMS upon entering the community. So one of the prerequisites for someone entering your community is that they have to enter their email and SMS. And you simply add them into whatever your software you're currently using for email marketing, or if you're not, there's a number of programs, super easy to find one. And so that's a really powerful tool that it's not foregoing the email marketing strategy. It's just adding to it in a way that makes it stronger and future-proof. 3rd, you launch your pre-release via the community and on email. And so this is where it gets really powerful. This is the difference between email marketing and the community pre-release. It's that you don't just send an email to an isolated inbox. You send an email saying, hey guys, by the way, website password is releasing only on the community space. And on top of that, you post things to the community saying, hey guys, we're releasing this in 24 hours. The website password is going to be here on the community page and here only. This is the only space where you can get it. I'm going to be talking about the benefit of doing that in a moment. Finally, step 4 is exactly the same. You later launch the public release if you want to. So, some brands, maybe a little side note, maybe you don't have to do the public release. Maybe you only do the community release, but that's up to you. And why does this model work so well? Why do I believe that the community pre-release model works much better than a simple email marketing? There's a few reasons. It's number one, high engagement, right? Exactly the problem that is with email marketing, you don't have in the community model. It's not like an isolated inbox where I just receive my emails and can't see anyone else who's maybe receiving these emails too. You have the ability to have live calls, a communal chat, and interaction between the members when you post saying, hey guys, we're releasing this in 24 hours. Imagine everyone commenting in at the same time saying, oh man, I'm so excited for this collection. Are you buying? Yes, I'm going to get my hands on these pieces. All of a sudden, an audience really does become a community, and it's not just a list of names and numbers in your email list. It now becomes actual humans that are part of your community and are interconnected, which gives them all the more reason to become super fans for your brand. Let me tell you a story. I was once walking through a shopping center in Melbourne City in Australia, and I saw this line outside the store. It was a line that went really wrapped around one of the aisles in the shopping center. And there was a security guard out front with a barrier that was letting in only a few people at a time. My head turned instantly when I saw this line. I knew nothing about the brand. I'd never seen them before in my life, yet still I was interested. So interested, in fact, that I waited in line. Now, why would I do this for a brand that I have never heard of, not even interested in? Before that day, I wasn't even going to buy any clothes. It's because of the social proof. The line demonstrates to me that other people are willing to work for this product. Therefore, it must be worth working for. They must know something that I don't about the product, and so maybe I'm interested in buying it too. And this is the power of community. It's that you get to demonstrate the hype around your brand in front of the eyes of some of the fence sitters that might be in your community. And so naturally, you're going to have a higher conversion rate. People that were kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to buy or not, they probably wouldn't have bought with just email marketing, now might definitely buy because they engage in the community and interact with others who are buying. All of a sudden, imagine if they get asked, hey, are you buying? Are you waiting for the next collection? And you go, I guess I am. I'm not a fence sitter anymore. I'm in with the club. I'm in with the community. And that's why this works. And so high conversion means more revenue for you, or at least more selling power. That's powerful. The last reason why this community pre-release model works so well is because people have a double incentive for joining. It's not just for the clothing product, but for the community itself. And so you're going to be able to build a community much bigger than you would ever build an email marketing list. It's massive, and I don't even have to speak any more on that point for you to understand its benefits. We've gone over a lot in this lesson, so let's recap it all. There's a reason why in-person lineups work. It's a visual demonstration of hype which drives conversions, and on top of that, it also demonstrates some of the strength of a community. It's the interconnections between individuals. However, we haven't retained these same benefits when moving into the online world. Email marketing doesn't really capture it all. So the solution is pre-release your garments to a community platform. You won't only grow your community around your drop, but also increase the product conversion rate. And plus, it's just fun. It's just fun. Imagine a space where you can talk about the very thing that you are passionate about speaking about and make more money in the process. This method is how you monetize your community and sell clothing to your community in a way that really, really works. And if this is a method you would like to apply in your own brand, here is your action step for today. Begin preparing your posts and emails leading up to your next drop. As a rule of thumb, you'll want to send something out every 72, 48, 24, 3 hours, 1 hour, and at the time of the drop itself. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you found some value in this lesson. If you resonate with any of the teachings that I've shared with you today, and it's something that you are really genuinely passionate about, is building a community around your brand and seeing all the benefits from it, then please go into the description right now of wherever you're consuming this and click on the link. It's going to take you to my online calendar, and this is a free community roadmap. We're going to figure out where you are, where you want to go, and how to get there with the power of community. This is a gift very much free for you, and it's personalized to your brand because, I'm sharing general information and knowledge through this video series. That's all I can do when I'm trying to reach a lot of different clothing brands in a lot of different niches. But let's do it niche for your brand. And by the way, this video is part 4 of 5 in a greater series all about how to turn your audience into a community. In part 5, in the final part, I'm going to be sharing how you can empower your audience to do the tasks that you either don't want to do or want to do more of. So I'm Elijah Delport. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next lesson. Click it. It's on screen right now. Did you know that there are brands out there that create none of their own content? In fact, their audience creates nearly all of it for them. For example, I don't know if you've been following Supreme, but a lot of their Instagram videos are made by skaters who are a part of their audience. These skaters aren't Supreme employees, and they probably don't even have to pay for it. At most, they are brand ambassadors. And the craziest part is that this content that's made for free gets Supreme an insane amount of sales. And it's all because of the power of community. Hi, I'm Elijah Delport. Today, I'm taking what I've learned and helping clothing brands turn their audience into a community. The reason is simple. I believe customers in community become super fans, and that is 3 things, F-A-N. F is for faithful, A is for advocates, and N is for nurtured. In other words, if you are able to build a successful community, then you will have more customers that stay for longer and buy more times. Now, why wouldn't you want that? This video is part 5, the last of a series all about how to turn your audience into a community, where I'm breaking down the exact community framework that I've used to do hundreds of hours of coaching with clothing brands just like yours, that has gotten them millions of views and sold out hundreds of garments in less than 90 minutes. And with this framework, you can too. Today, we're talking about empowering the people. To recap what we've gone over in previous lessons up until this point, we first spoke about what makes a community, and how to plan your own community around your clothing brand. Part 2, I shared with you how to find and attract your founding members, the people that will become the loyal customers to your clothing brand community. Part 3 was about giving them the space where they can actually live out and interact with other community members, because that's the defining aspect, I believe, of community. And then in part 4, I shared with you how to monetize that community space. How do you actually start making money from selling your clothing drops to the people that call themselves loyal members of your mission? In this lesson about empowering the people, we're going to be covering 3 main things. First of all, the 2 types of empowerment. It's really integral to understand what the different types are so you can actually outwork them. Secondly, I'm going to be talking about how you can practically apply these methods without lots of resources. You probably don't have the same resources as Supreme, as I shared in the beginning of this episode. So how do you do it as an army of one or a small team? And then finally, the unspoken benefit of community that comes with empowering people. If you get to the end of this video and apply the structure, I promise you'll walk away with everything you need to empower your audience so that you don't even have to do everything yourself. You can take some work off your hands or just increase the output from whatever you're doing right now. And if that's not enough, I have a personalized gift for those that stay to the end of the video that's going to help you take your brand to the next level. More on that in a few minutes. All right, let's get into it. First, what are the types of empowerment? Well, there are 2 main types of empowerment that I will be covering today in this lesson that are relevant to you and your clothing brand. And they are external or real-world empowerment and internal empowerment. I'm going to be breaking these down briefly, and then we're going to look at each one more closely with some specific examples. First of all, external or real-world empowerment is big picture. It's your brand's indirect impact on the world through the customers that wear your clothing and believe in your mission? What are they going to go and do? What are they outworking into the real world? And secondly, there's internal empowerment. So this is anything that has a direct impact on your brand. It's incentivizing the people in your community to actually help in what you're doing, to take some of the workload off your shoulders, or to simply do more. Now let's start with internal empowerment, which is the direct impact on your brand. There are three main ways that you can empower your community to have a direct impact on your brand. You can empower them to run your community, create content, or design the garments. In the first community I started, I wanted to empower some of the members to help me run the community because I decided I can't just be posting in it myself. I need others to start engaging with it too, which would maybe eventually become the admins for the space. So I sent a personalized message to each of the most engaged members in my community saying, here's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And if you believe in it too, I want you to help me by being the community you want to be a part of. All I was doing is empowering them. I was giving them responsibility. I was giving them something to believe in. And it worked because the number of ties between members increased via DMs and comments and posts. It increased dramatically, which in other words, according to our definition or our measurement of strength of a community, created a much stronger space that people were more committed to. And the funny thing that happened as a byproduct of this initiative that I took was that some community members began creating their own community challenges. I remember one in particular. He said, today we're going to start a new thing. We're doing this weekly challenge where we're going to share what we post of the week and we can give each other suggestions on how to improve it. I thought it was amazing. I didn't even have to ask him to start it. He simply did it himself. Why? Because he believed in my greater mission, and I empowered him in part to actually go out and do and be the community he wants to be a part of. So this is one way you could empower your members of your community to have internal direct impact on what you're doing. Empower them to run the community for you. Don't just be in the space all by yourself laboring away. Do that on top of other members contributing in a really big and responsible way. Next, you could empower your community in content creation. One of the biggest obstacles I hear in brand owners that I speak to and in my coaching program is that they don't have the resources or time to create content. Well, number one, I always say find it because your brand relies on it. That's where your customers come from. And number two, I always suggest that they empower their own audience to help them create some of their content. And the way they do that is by turning their customers into ambassadors. This is something that Supreme does really well because a lot of the posts, as mentioned before, that they post on their page aren't even made by them. Supreme's brand ambassadors receive garments for free. They don't have to pay for it. And then they're encouraged to go out and create these skate videos that, by the way, they're already doing with their friends, just wearing the garments. And they send them to Supreme, and Supreme posts a number of them every week or so. So if you want to empower your community in regards to content creation, then simply put it out there. Anyone who wants a free garment and will make content around your big idea. And this is a flywheel now. It's a kind of a positive feedback loop that feeds into itself. That you get people into your community from the content that you post. And then they start posting and creating that content, the people in your community, and then you use that to get more people into the community. And it just goes around and around and around like a positive feedback loop. And if you want to know if this strategy will work for you, then simply do the math. Weigh up the cost of sending free garments to customers or to ambassadors versus the cost of making content. For example, if you had a garment that costs $15 to make, and there was $2 in packaging and $3 in shipping. It's roughly a $20 cost in creating that garment. Say the agreement is to send out one garment per month to your brand ambassadors. They don't have to pay for it, you cover the costs, and they make at least 2 pieces of content a month that you would go on and post. $20 divided by 2 is $10 it's costing you per video that they make. And by the way, that's just money cost, not even much time compared to what it might take to create that video. My question is for you, how many customers might you get from one video? Heck, Probably at least one. If you get a few people that follow along, maybe someone at some point will buy one of your garments. As long as you're making more than $10 profit per order, that's more than the cost of the video. You're dreaming. This is amazing, and there's no reason not to do it because you're on the green. Finally, you can internally empower your community through designing the garments, your product itself. I had a guy in my coaching program, and he had a thing called the Design Initiative. He put it out there that anyone who wants to design but has never been given the opportunity to create their own collection or clothing brand, the time is now. And so people could submit their designs, and they had the chance to win their design, if it was the best, on one of his latest collections. And this was a win-win situation because he was giving an opportunity to those that had never been able to or have the resources to create their own t-shirts, to put their design on it, and he didn't have to design it himself. The challenge from this story is to think of ways that you can offer value that isn't money. You may not have the money or the funds to hire a designer if you don't enjoy it or you are not a designer yourself. However, if you can deliver value in some other way, maybe that's enough, and use the community to do so. That's one of the benefits of having a community, so use them. With all this in mind, why would you even want to build a community? Well, there's simply two reasons, I believe. It's either you don't want to do it and they do it for you, or you want to do more of it and they do it with you. And so if you think about where am I on these topics, on either running the community, on creating content, on designing garments, do you want to do it? Do you not want to do it? Do you empower them to do it for you, or do you simply empower them to do it with you? So here's your action step. If you want to internally empower your customers, ask yourself, what's the biggest time vampire in my business? The time vampire meaning the biggest time suck. What are you spending and sinking the most time into that you don't really need to be or you don't want to be? Okay, now we've fully covered the internal empowerment. Let's look at the external or real world empowerment of your community. And so this is your brand's indirect impact on the world. Fight Club is one of my favorite films of all time. And if you haven't seen it, just imagine a dungeon underneath a shop front, and inside there is this group of guys who are just punching each other up. Literally they have a fight club. Well, the leader of the fight club at the end in one of the scenes gives all the members homework. He says, okay, this week your task is to go away and start a fight with a random person on the street, which is so random. And this is what I mean by external empowerment. Now, don't miss my point here, because I'm not saying that you should go and empower your audience to start a fight on the street. But the point is that you can complete your greater mission through those who are passionate about your brand. Just like in the Fight Club film, those that were passionate about the Fight Club, the leader could complete his mission through them as they go out and he outworks his vision into the world, and so can you in your clothing brand. So there are three main ways that you can empower your community to go and work in the real world. The first is through charity and financially supporting good causes. A good example of this type of external empowerment is the brand Homie. On their website, they say 100% of profits go towards our mission of supporting young people affected by homelessness or hardship. Great. They've got a charity. If you buy the garments, you are supporting the charity. And this is one of the ways that they're using their impact to outwork the greater mission and vision in the world. The second way is by setting homework. Maybe you want to take the approach like the leader of Fight Club, where you say to your members, hey, go out and do this. And this links very nicely into the third way, which is community challenges. An example of this for a mental health brand would be call a friend. This week, take some time, just take 10 minutes out of your day on a Monday to just call some people that come to mind that you haven't spoken to in a while. Or another one is for an outdoors brand, go on a hike. And if you don't have anyone to go with, go alone. And this is a fantastic way to, again, outwork your vision into the world and have a greater purpose beyond your brand that's in line with what your brand's big idea is. And it all comes down to this. When you empower your people for the greater good, your community becomes a movement. If we remind ourselves of the community matrix that I introduced in part 1, an audience is interaction in isolation between the brand and the customers. Community is when interaction really becomes when customers begin forming ties between each other. And finally, a movement is when the brand empowers the community to outwork the vision into the world. They actually start moving and it goes beyond just themselves. And this brings us to the final part of the discussion. It's the fourth unspoken benefit of community. We know about the three that I've said is that customers in community become fans, faithful, they turn down other logical better options, advocates, they are word of mouth vessels for your brand, and nurtured, they're repeat buyers that come back again and again and again. Finally, and this is one that I haven't added, I probably could have, but here it is now, satisfaction. There is a deep fulfillment in yourself and in your brand when you are making true positive change through the work that you're doing. I believe that any chasing of money is trying to get to this point of fulfillment. We can just cut to the chase. We can simply jump to the fulfillment part by creating a community of ourselves and empowering them to go out and outwork the vision that we desire to see come to pass in this world. I know this thinking is big picture for many people, but it comes down to, what do you want people to say about you on your funeral bed? Are they going to remember the products you sold, or are they going to remember the community that you built? We've gone over a lot in this lesson and some pretty deep stuff as well at the end. Let's recap it all. First of all, there are two main types of empowerment, internal and external. It's the difference being internal has a direct impact on your brand. External is the indirect impact you have on the world. It's only when external empowerment happens that you can turn your community into a movement, something that goes greater and beyond just yourself. So if this is inspiring you, here's your action step today to actually start making something happen. Stop planning and start doing. Most good ideas die in planning, so actually try the things out that I'm sharing, and if it doesn't work, try something else. I like the quote from Elon Musk that says, if you're gonna fail, fail quickly. And this is more of a reflection or action step on everything that I've gone over in the last 5 parts. And so please, just actually do something. You could be like most of the people that are going to watch this video and do absolutely nothing, but don't do that. Your clothing brand success lies on the other side of execution, and execution in making and cultivating a community. So start putting this stuff into practice, and I promise you're going to feel more fulfilled than ever. Your customers are going to be more faithful than ever, more advocates of your brand, and more nurtured repeat buying. Finally, thank you genuinely for watching this 5-part series and sticking with it through me until the end. If anything that I've said in the last 5 parts has resonated with where you want to take your brand and the direction into the future, then please book in your free community roadmap session. We're going to sit down and we're going to actually figure out where you are right now, where you want to go, and how to get there with the power of community. Essentially just personalizing everything that I've gone over in this series up until this point to you and your brand. So there's a link in the description of this video that you can click. It'll take you to my online calendar and you can book in that call for free. It's totally free, I promise. There's no catch, it's just value. Well, that's all from me. I'm Elijah Delport. If you've enjoyed, subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. That's a wrap. That's a wrap. That's a wrap. Oh, I'm tired. Takes it out of you, hey?